G'day folks, today in this video we're not just going to be taking a look at one recent laptop that I acquired, or two recent laptops that I've acquired. We're talking three recent laptop acquisitions, because of course, this is my channel, why wouldn't I? So apologies on the use of the wide angle. I'm a bit tight on space, at least in this current moment, so you'll have to forgive me for using wide angle for this. It might make some people a little bit vision sick, so my bad, it's not my intention. But anyways, I digress. So, three laptops in the span of, well, I'd probably say a week or so. So they all have some pretty interesting stories, I guess, for what they are. And they're all at least functional machines. So while we get into the most boring of the three, or at least I consider it to be the most boring of the three, this Dv6. So this is the HP Pavilion Dv6-6c35dx from about early 2012, I would predict. As a mid-range option in their entertainment series lineup of laptops, this is an AMD APU-derived laptop using an A8 3520M quad-core processor with Radeon HD graphics in it. I forget exactly which SKU. We'll find out when we boot the computer up. I think it's like 6620G graphics or something of that nature. Either way, this is a Dv6 Entertainment Series machine, and as such, it's got a fairly well-built construction. I wouldn't call it premium, like fully premium, but it's semi-premium. It's got an aluminum top here with a little plastic separator edge to allow the antennas to go through the metal top here. And it's also got a metal palm rest, which is pretty nice. It's also got the Beats audio system in it. This was one of the very first machines, if I'm not mistaken, from HP to feature something like this. It's not the high-end of high-end Beats audio systems like their later machines. This one does not have an integrated subwoofer, but it does have two speakers on the bottom and two speakers up front. So it's actually not the worst thing ever, although I haven't really gotten it to work very well. Either that or this machine's damaged in some way because, well, it doesn't sound too good right now. But I imagine the headphones are probably what makes the software work, because that's really all that it is just, software equalization. Figured it'd probably be a little easier for not only you guys to be able to see, but also for my knees, because, tile flooring on a concrete base. Anyways, I digress. Just to take a look at this machine and its I/O in greater detail before, of course, we look at the other two and, of course, power all three of these machines on, because, like I said, all three of them do work. So, on the front, there is an SD card slot. There's also two of the four speakers that are deriving of the Beats system that this has for audio. There is a DVD-RW drive. This is not the higher end model that had the Blu-ray drive. These did have options for Blu-ray drives, but I think those are only on the Intel models that would have had either first gen or second gen. I think it was second gen Sandy Bridge Intel Core processors in them, and they likely would have had some form of discrete graphics to play back Blu-ray movies. A couple LEDs for hard drive and power for right there. There's two USB 2 ports. There's a Kensington lock slot, and then your charger socket. This will take, I believe, a 65-watt charger. I believe that's what it comes with standard, but I got it with a 90-watt, which is pretty nifty. On the back, you can see Hewlett-Packard. This is not metal. This is a piece of painted plastic, and this also has a light-up HP logo, which is pretty cool. It's got this mirror finish on it, but it's pretty neato. I like it anyway. Underneath here is a little tiny vent, and there's where the battery goes. On the left-hand side, there's the rest of the cooling vent. There's the VGA port without the screws, which is not cutting into the vent like some of their newer machines did, which I thought was a really stupid design. You have an HDMI port right there. You have gigabit Ethernet there. You have two USB 3.0 ports, which is actually kind of a pleasant surprise for something of this mid-range nature from 2012. I'm kind of surprised to see two USB 3.0 ports. I would have figured just one, but still, that's pretty nifty to have. And then this also has a microphone jack and dual headphone jacks, which is pretty sweet. So I imagine what you would have the ability to do is to have a headset plugged in right here. You could have your USB power for your headset, microphone, and headphone all right there. And then if another person wanted to listen as well, they could plug in headphones right there as well, which is pretty cool, not gonna lie. So this machine has quite a number of useful ports on it, as well as obviously the DVD drive. It's definitely not the easiest machine to keep clean, I'll tell you that much. This aluminum top, which does look pretty dang good, if I'll be honest, not resist dust and fingerprints. Of course, what you expect, you know, it's aluminum. It is brown in color, so, you know, it is what it is. So here's the inside of the machine, and as you can see, it looks like pretty much any other DV6 from the era, except that this one has a light up ring around the trackpad, which you'll see when we turn this on. This also has a fingerprint reader over here. I forget exactly what HP calls it. Oh, it's right here on the sticker. I'm blind. HP Simple Pass. That's what they called this fingerprint reader. And then, as you can see, there's a sticker that says quad core and AMD Radeon graphics. Although it doesn't mean this has a discrete GPU in it. It just denotes that this is a APU, because it's an AMD A8 with the Radeon graphics. So that's all that sticker means. Because obviously if it was an Intel machine, it would have to have a dedicated Radeon sticker on the palm rest if it had the AMD GPU option, rather than, of course, in this case, this is a purely AMD APU based machine. This does not have the backlit keyboard option, although that's fine. The backlit keyboard was an option on these machines if you so wanted to add one, which is pretty nifty if I do say so myself. Up here is the power button. And you can see there's a little quick web access button there. I forget what HP called this one. If it wasn't just quick web, I don't think that's exactly what it was called, but there's some special software on the hard drive which allowed you to quickly start up the machine into some form of environment which you could then quickly get on the internet. Nothing too crazy. There you can see there's the rest of the speaker system up here by the screen. And speaking of the glossy display, here I am. Hello, how are you doing? Don't look at my ugly mug, please. This is a glossy 15-inch 1366 by 768 LED backlit LCD. Nothing crazy. I don't even think it's IPS. So it's just your bottom of the barrel LCD, at least in this particular configuration. It is bottom of the barrel. And the only downside for this machine, the one I have, is the bezel is cracked and it was coming apart. So this looks so bad, but you know what? You know, I'm gonna roll with it. I tried to super glue these pieces together, and needless to say, it was a rather unsuccessful job. But hey, the super glue actually held, and it kept the bezel in place. I was kind of surprised by this. So, you know what? I'm not going to complain about it too much. You know, this was a laptop that cost me $20 when it was all said and done. Came with a 90-watt AC adapter, 6 gigs of RAM. It came with a 640 gig hard drive, which I believe was the original. And yeah, you know, what more could you want for a $20 laptop that fully works otherwise? And the hinges are in great shape. Like, this is almost one of those laptops that I would almost say is a diamond in the rough. You know, obviously diamond in the rough because, you know, anyways. Yeah, sorry to Versa WizKid here on YouTube. I also have a D810 now, so that's exactly what this is. Although mine is not nearly in as nice of shape as his was, and I don't think that's really saying too much just because it's a D810. But, you know, it's whatever. So, yeah, this one has a bit of an interesting story. So, all of you in this channel, you know, they probably know, you know, I have a friend, he goes by Chris, and he has been the source of some of my computers that I've shown here on the channel, specifically the E6410, the E6430, and some of the other machines that you've seen. This is another one of those machines that he acquired from the recycling bin that was about to actually get taken to the recycling center. So, he saved it, and it was actually a complete system, of course, minus a charger. So it actually came with an 80 gig hard drive in it and some RAM, although only 512 megabytes of DDR2. But hey, you know, it came with parts. So I was actually kind of happy to see that. But what's also kind of crazy is this machine actually still works. You know, it was just sitting in the recycle bin. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. So it was probably worth saving, and I'm glad that he did. And he gave it to me for free because he doesn't have a charger for it. Luckily, I do. I have a 130-watt charger, so that's perfect for this machine. So why don't you say we take a look at this recycled baby, because why not? So it does have some problems with the cosmetics. There's some pieces of plastic missing from the palm rest. That's pretty common for these D800, D600, D500, you know, these kinds of eras of machine. They tended to have some cosmetic issues, but nothing that affects the actual machine itself. Over here is kind of a rare option. You can see this one's got the DVD burner drive in it, which most of these came with a combo drive, you know, the CDRW DVD-ROM drive, but this one actually has a burner in it, which is quite impressive, actually. And of course, these share optical drives with the ultra small form factor of Optiplexes. If I'm not mistaken, they all use the same D-Bay of optical drives. So this could have come from basically any machine, honestly, but I suppose that these would have came with a DVD burner drive in 2005. That makes sense. Anyways, we have a headphone and microphone jack here on the right-hand side next to the D-Bay. We have two USB 2.0 ports, a little tiny vent. And speaking of vents, this one's actually kind of blocked off over here because this doesn't really have the requirement for a secondary cooling fan. Although if you had a higher end graphics option, this would probably be occupied with a secondary cooling fan, which again, this one doesn't have one. It only has the basic discrete GPU, like the barest of bare minimums you could get. Anyways, IRDA port there. We have a gigabit LAN port, 56K modem port, two more USB 2 ports. We have the multi-system video out, like the S-Video composite, combined into one jack style of connector, if I'm not mistaken, that's what that is. 9-pin serial, got a VGA port. There is the Dell usual barrel style charger socket there. There's an actual cooling vent here, which has a piece of hair stuck in it annoyingly, so I'm gonna have to get that out, but anyways. And then of course some more accessible cooling vents. Yeah, you can tell there's some cosmetic issues again. There's some scuffs on the left-hand side here, but again, nothing that's going to affect the machine itself. Up here, I believe this is a PC card slot. Yes, it is a PC card slot. I had to double check just to make sure, because I don't think Express Card was on a Pentium M. Or maybe it was, and I just don't remember. Anyways, there's the hard drive carrier right there, and another lock slot over there. And there's a smart card slot for if your organization required the use of smart cards. So that's likely kind of the reason why this was equipped with a smart card slot, because it was probably used at our institution. Anyways, so open up the lid here. This machine definitely has seen a very productive life. It is definitely, yeah, you can see some more of these cosmetic problems here on the palm rest. Actually, this mouse button's a little not functional, but it does still click. It's just spongy and kind of stuck down at best, so you know, I bet you it's because of this right here. But anyways, I digress. So this thing likely saw the hard life of an instructor or someone at our institution, as it definitely has a war keyboard. There's a lot of shiny spots on this keyboard, although it does still work and all the keys are still here, so you know what, I'll give it that. But she's definitely got some battle scars. Palm rest has got some shiny spots and some of the paint's about to wear through. It's missing the Design for Microsoft Windows XP sticker over here. And the hinges are definitely a little on the boof side. But I think this is entirely fixable, because I think the hinges inside the actual display housing itself are a little loose, because the diagnosis of mine that I did when I was upgrading the RAM is that the hinges themselves are fine. Those don't seem to be the problem. It's just that the screws inside the actual display housing themselves are loose. So that's an easy fix. I can just go in here, take off all these little rubber caps, take off the screws, and then pry back this piece and then tighten down the display, and that should fix it, no problem. So that's not the end of the world. It's just I got to be careful with the screen in the meantime, because it is loose. So, you know, it is kind of is what it is. Anyways, being that this is a D810, it's got all kinds of indicator lights. The power button logos wore off the power button. Luckily, I know what exactly that does. There you can see the volume buttons there. This probably was ordered with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth when it was new, given the rest of the high-end nature of the specifications you're about to find out on this machine, or at least this particular spec. But unfortunately, the wireless card was ripped out, so there's no Wi-Fi on this machine. And I'm not sure if it's really worth investing in one, or at least, you know, one that would actually have the same or similar functionality. I guess it just depends on cost. But honestly, in the end, I'm not really planning on using this machine too much with Wi-Fi to begin with. I'll just use Ethernet. That doesn't really bother me too much. It's a little bummer, but it's not that big of a deal. And of course, up here is the power, the hard drive light, and the battery light. So, yeah. Note on the battery, it's completely toast, which doesn't surprise me. This thing has, like I said, seen a very, very rough life. And so the fact that the battery doesn't work is the least of this laptop's problems. So if I come down here, you can see, yeah, it doesn't really tell you anything. But here's the original battery here. And I know it's original because the date code was verified, and I don't exactly remember when, but it was an early 2005 manufactured date on this battery. And fortunately, it's not bulging or doing anything goofy. And then, of course, when the laptop's plugged in, it doesn't overheat. So I think this battery is not going to be that big of a deal. And if I was really concerned about it, I'd buy a Chinese replacement, because those are probably better batteries than the ones that these originally came with. Circa 2006 Dell battery recall. Anyways, so since this is a D810, it uses DDR2 RAM, and because this uses a Dothan Pentium M, that means it uses DDR2 RAM. Now, not all Dothans use DDR2. I have a Dothan that's up there, an Inspiron 700M, that uses DDR memory, which is kind of a rare spring chickling, if you will, which is not really a proper term, but I don't care. I'm going to use it on the fly. But this one is a proper DDR2 RAM-equipped computer. Same with the D610 brethren, which is basically the smaller one. Anyways, so yeah, we'll power this thing on here in this video. It does have some other issues too, which is unfortunate for a machine like this, but again, I think they'll be fixable if I was really interested in doing so. The LCD shows lines on it whenever it's powered on, and it's not a damaged LCD, it's just I think the cable has a problem. So that might be an easy fix. If I was to go in and fix the hinges, I could probably see about replacing the main LVDS cable that goes to the LCD. And you'll soon see why I think it might be worth investing in it, but not right now, just because, you know, obviously, you know, funds are a little tight and it's not really worth doing it to a machine like this. But anyways, so that's that for the D810 for now. Let's move on to the last, which is that other, oh, excuse me, almost burped on camera. That last HP, which is probably, and I think, the most interesting. So this big chunk, and kind of partially the D810, are the main reasons why I wanted to make this video. I mean, just look at this thing. Look at this big, beastly HP laptop from 2004. Like, look at this thing. It is absolutely massive. It's beautiful. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is a Zv-6000 series HP Pavilion. Specifically the Zv-6130. And I've heard that this is potentially a very uncommon model, or maybe just because, you know, it's uncommon because nowadays they're kind of hard to find, and they're also kind of hard to find in good condition. So this machine I did pay quite a bit of money for what it is, which I believe is, you know, obviously some kind of Athlon 64. I don't know exactly what socket, but based on the thickness of this thing, I would presume that it's not a very power efficient one. Anyways, so the Zv-6130, I paid $40 for this thing. Ouch. But you know what? This machine, I mean, I need to give it a better, more proper cleaning, but you know what? It's honestly in very good shape for its age. Again, 2004 is how old this laptop is. So to give you a bit of perspective, like some of the paint's wearing off on the corners, whatever, paint's scratched up on the top, who cares? You know, rubber feet missing on the bottom, but otherwise this thing is complete and functional, and it's got a good battery. Like, oh my, like this thing's impressive for what it is. So let's get into the overview of the ports before I start joining all these people out of the audience, which I probably have already done so far. I'm almost as bad as Billy Core in a way. So on the front we have Altec Lansing speakers, and there's a driver there and a driver there. These actually sound really good. This takes me back to the days when laptops had actually good speaker systems in them, unlike that over there. Although, again, that's probably likely down to drivers, but that doesn't sound nearly as good as this. This sounds way freaking better. And this one actually sounds pretty good, too. Anyways, I digress. So on the front, we have another IRDA port here. We have volume for volume up, volume down, mute. And this light turns on whenever you have it muted. There's also power, hard drive access, and charging status. And there's a lid catch here. And then let's go ahead and move over to the right-hand side. And then this thing has got a lot of ports on it, which is actually surprising. So anyways, let's get into them. Headphone jack, microphone jack. We have an IEEE 1394 port, the 4-pin variant. And there's got a USB 2 port there. This is HP's Expansion Bay 2 connector here, and I actually have a dock for this, which is probably one of the main reasons why I bought this laptop, other than just for the sake of, you know, this thing is in really good shape and it looks cool. But I do have one of these docks. It made me think back to May 2019 when I scored all of those free Dells from my school. I got one of these Expansion Bay 2 based docks, and I'd like to show that in a video sometime because it's actually really beefy and cool. Speaking of cool, there is a vent there, although it's not for the reason you might think. It's not for a discrete GPU, and it's not the only vent on this laptop. Believe me, when I turn this thing to the back, you'll soon see why. Ethernet here, there's an S-Video output there, and I believe, again, I'm not sure if this handles composite, but it at least does S-Video, so that's pretty nifty. On the Rear right, we have the charger socket. This is a 90-watt requirement because of the beefy CPU this thing has in it. And it uses like this oval charger connector of some kind. I've never seen anything like this from an HP before, but I guess because this thing needs the additional current. So it's quite the beast of a charger indeed. Here's the rear. As you can see, there are more ventilations for, obviously, the CPU. There's a VGA port with the screws on the back. We also have another USB 2.0 port. We also have a modem jack on the back. And on the left-hand side, we have Kensington security lock. We have both a PC card slot and an express card slot above it. So, interesting that the express card has a sort of a system where you push it in to eject it. There you can see the express card blink there. And then, of course, like I mentioned, below that is the PC card slot. So that's really cool that this has both options. That's actually really nifty. We have two more USB 2.0 ports there. We have a multi-card reader, which actually contains a lot of the standard cards that you would expect. So that includes Memory Stick and Memory Stick Pro, MMC, Smart Media cards, XD cards, and SD cards. Don't know if this does SDHC. I don't believe that it does, because again, this is from 2004. SDHC didn't exist then. And another absolutely amazing feature. Again, for a machine of this nature, this has a DVD RW drive, and it actually will do dual-layer DVDs, which is an extra bit of impressive. I cannot believe that for a machine like this, but you know what? Hey, I'm not complaining. I will take that. This thing would have been a monstrously expensive laptop, I imagine, back in the day, considering its size, its weight, and, you know, obviously all of the I/O on this thing. It's absolutely impressive, but the only thing that would have made this thing extra impressive is having a discrete GPU, which this does not have. This only has integrated graphics, which it's kind of an interesting setup. I'll get into that here in a little bit. And there's our lovely 15-inch 1280 by 800 display. Of course, they had to denote that it's a widescreen because that's what everybody did back in 2004 and 2005, is denote that everything was a widescreen. Well, actually, they did that for several years. Anyways, look at this keyboard. Like, the keyboard for a machine like this, it's a little dirty, yeah, and I didn't do the best job of cleaning it, admittedly, but you know what? It's not even all that bad. It really isn't all that worn. And I believe this is the original keyboard, so really, actually shockingly impressive how clean that is. The touchpad does have a shiny spot in it, and it has a little bit of its texture wore through, but it's not bad, and even the buttons are nice and clicky, and they don't have their paint wore off either, so that's really a good sign. The hinges feel great. Like, they feel absolutely fantastic, which that's a good thing for a machine of this age, because I can imagine these things are probably breaking down. Like, these machines, they weren't exactly the most well-built machines, and they're big and they're heavy, and so, yeah, obviously that contributes to wear and tear. So this thing, the fact that it's in this good of condition is impressive. Like, even the palm rests aren't even wore through. They still have a textured finish on them. And the paint's even. Like, are you kidding me? That's crazy. I mean, again, it's a little dirty. Like, there's a vent up here. It's a little bit dirty. But you know what? That's all fine. You could actually clean all of this. And that's what's impressive about it, like, to me at least, considering, you know, the age of this machine. It's almost 16 years old. So it's hard to believe. But give you guys a little bit of a look at it here from a distance. So this machine, I have actually done a little bit of the work to the software to try to make it original. It's not perfect by any means. I don't think I have the right software package, but when I boot this thing up, and I'll obviously save it for last, it does actually have a somewhat close enough copy of what would have originally came on this thing when it was new. It is Windows XP Home Edition, but I don't believe I have the right wallpaper, and I don't believe some of the software that is on this thing right now is original. But you know what? Dang it, I got it close enough, because the disc that I used was meant for an Athlon 64 machine anyway, but it had NVIDIA graphics, whereas this has ATI graphics, so it's a little different. But you know what? I'll roll with it. Hopefully you all don't mind when I show this machine powered on. Alright, so once again we're going to start off with the least interesting machine, which is going to be this DV6 here, so let's go ahead and power it on. And I'll actually show the light up HP logo here on the back of the lid. Lights up white. Looks really cool. And there it goes, booting up Windows. Unfortunately, this does not have any kind of recovery partition, so please, people, don't ask me about it. It's a formatted clean copy of Windows 10, so it's absolutely nothing fancy, but I just did it because I wanted something that would actually work on this machine. So, obviously it's far from perfect, but, it's whatever. I'm going to do another clean install because what's on here is not exactly fantastic, but, at least it's enough to have me demonstrate the machine. I believe the fingerprint reader does work. It's a little bit finicky under Windows 10. I'm not really thrilled with this fingerprint reader and how it's functioning. And it's also very slow, but there you can see it loaded eventually. So here we are. Let me get the brightness up here a bit because it's quite dim. So here we are. Now we'll go ahead and just go under the start menu here, and we're just going to right click, hit system, so I can show you all the specifications. I have upgraded the RAM from 6 gigs to 16, which is this laptop's maximum supported RAM, which doesn't surprise me. And obviously, because this is an APU, it shares 512 megabytes of it for the video memory. So now we actually have plenty of system RAM and enough VRAM to which we can actually do something with this if we wanted to play some older games, which is likely what this would be used for. And it does have DX11 support due to the graphics, which is actually fairly nice. Yeah, there you can see I do need to reinstall Windows on this. It's only got 1909. I'll put 2004 on it later, but that's fine. At least for the sake of demonstration, 1909 will do the trick. So if I come down here to advanced display settings, we can now see, okay, I was correct, yeah. Amd Radeon HD 6620G graphics. Now, if this had a higher end APU like the A10, then that would have been slightly better graphics. They're all very, very similar in performance to one another. They all use shared video memory. So the 6620G is fairly respectable. And, like I said, it has DirectX 11 support, which is something that this has going for it, which is really nice, because if it was a slightly older machine, obviously it would have had DX11 support, I would have imagined, I think, because I think the HD 5000 series did. They were one of the very first cards to have DX11 support, whereas the 6000, of course, just built upon that same architecture. Anyways, I'm rambling. So it'll be interesting to see what this thing can do. I don't know if I'm going to make a video on it specifically doing any kind of gaming for YouTube, unless, people are interested in me going through the trouble of doing that. So let me know if that's something I should do. But at the very least, I have tried a couple of different things on here, and they do run very well, at least for what this laptop was back in the day. These APUs always had the graphics going for them, and that's definitely true here. So, you know what? I'll roll with it. So, yeah, that's about all I can really talk about with this DV6. It is a very nice machine to use. Like, it feels premium. The keyboard feels pretty good. It isn't the fastest by any means anymore, especially considering the CPU front is not exactly that great, especially these days. It's a first-gen APU. I do think it has aged pretty well, I would say, all things considered, even if the graphics really didn't get that well of driver support, but that's just because, AMD was pretty crap with their drivers back then with this architecture, so I can't say I'm too surprised. Anyways, that's about all I can really talk about for this machine. So I'm just going to go ahead and shut this down, and let's move on to the Dell. Okay, so here's the D810. I got my lovely, good condition charger here, obviously patent pending with the shielding. Had to fix this one or whatever. So let me go ahead and find the charger hole in the back here. And there we go. And this machine, oh man, it makes me so sad to say this, but it's got the 1920 by 1200 display in it. The nice high resolution anti-glare 1920 by 1200 LCD. And when I power it on here, you'll see how gutting it is to see all those lines on it, which again, I think it is easily fixable. I think it's down to the display cable being the problem, because the LCD is not cracked in any places. It's just the cable. So I don't know if it's just a bad connection or if the cable itself is actually damaged, because this really sucks, because this LCD is in fantastic condition for what it is. So let's go ahead and head into the BIOS here. It's got BIOS revision A03 from late 2005. So it's been slightly updated, but nothing too insane. This is another disheartening part. Look at this Pentium M. It's got the 2.13 gigahertz Pentium M processor in it. That is actually really freaking cool. Of course, no hyper-threading. This is a Pentium M. I've also maxed out the RAM at 2 gigs of DDR2 533 megahertz in dual channel. This machine originally came with 512 megs, if I'm not mistaken. You can see the 80 gig hard drive, DVD plus and minus RW drive there. Now you can see this has got the ATI Mobility Radeon X300 discrete graphics with 64 megs of discrete video memory. And there is the 1920 by 1200 native resolution of the LCD panel. And of course, a 130 watt charger. As you can see, the battery is so bad that it doesn't even show that it's installed, although it is there because it's blinking the light. But the battery doesn't really give you anything inside of this BIOS. It's too early for that. It does still hold the proper date and time to some degree, so at least it's got that going for it. So the backup battery is still good, but that's about really all it's got going for it. So let's go ahead and boot it up. It's just running a clean install of Windows at the moment, nothing crazy. I did have to format the hard drive because what was on here had some data on it left over and I just wasn't interested in dealing with it, so I just hooked it up to my Windows Deployment Services server and I loaded up a fresh copy of Windows Vista and called it a day. I know Vista's not exactly the most ideal OS for Pentium M, but you know what, it works. And everything except for the sound works out of the box in Vista on a machine like this anyway. Same thing with a D610, so it's close enough that I would consider it to be a worthy enough OS to run. And I might have some plans for Vista on something like this and my D610, both of which are running Vista, so you know what, it's whatever. But, you know, obviously these are XP machines at heart, so likely they'll probably get put back on XP at some point in the near future, but I guess we'll have to see. Ah, crap, I was doing updates on this last time. Ah! Alright, all the updates are done being configured here, so we'll just let it get into the desktop here. Again, it's so disheartening to see the lines in the screen. I'm sounding like a broken record, but really it's so gutting to see the lines in the screen of this beautiful, beautiful LCD. Like, truly, this would have been a very expensive LCD for a D810 back in the day. It just looks so good. So, in typical fashion, Vista's just taking its sweet time to start up here. Especially after doing updates, it takes a hot minute or two to load. So I'll just close out of this notification here because I had it connected to my local network. So let me go under the computer properties here. And then you can see this mouse button's a little bit foobarred, but it still works. So you can see 2 gigs of RAM, Pentium M 2.13 gigahertz there, running 32-bit Windows because this is a Pentium M, and Windows Experience Index of 2.0. Gee, I can't imagine that's because of the graphics. Yeah, desktop performance for Windows Aero. Wah, wah. These are not very good graphics for Windows Aero. It's almost as bad as a GeForce FX Go 5200 on the D800. Or, you know, this desktop FX 5200 for that matter. These were not fast graphics, and especially since it's trying to push a 1920 by 1200 display, that doesn't exactly help matters any. And of course, you know, Aero is supposed to be for a 128 meg graphics card. Well, this is a 64 meg graphics card. It's having to share video memory to make Windows Aero work, and of course it's being pushed onto basically its maximum natively supported resolution, so that doesn't exactly help with the performance, and as such, she's really pokey on the Windows Aero. It does work, but likely I think I'm going to turn Aero off, but I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I mean, moving windows around, at least the personalization window here, it's fine. It's smooth, and I've installed better drivers, so it's actually working quite a bit better. But anyways, so yeah, the only reason why it's good that this has the Mobility Radeon X300 in it versus the integrated Intel video is because that means I can install newer versions of Windows on a machine like this. I'm not stuck to like Vista and 7. I could actually install 8.1 and for that matter Windows 10 of a LTS-B variety, I think, or LTS-C 2016, because the newer ones won't work for some reason. I don't know why, but you know, they don't work, so it kind of is what it is. But you know, 1920 by 1200 display there. So this machine doesn't exactly have a whole heck of a lot going for it either. I just put Vista on it just so it would have an operating system. It actually, for all intents and purposes, you know, obviously it doesn't really reflect it right now, but it actually runs Vista surprisingly well. You know, for a Pentium M, I mean, this is one of the highest end Pentium M's you could get in one of these, if not the highest Pentium M you could ever get in one of these things. So, I mean, I guess I can't say that I'm really too surprised, but I am kind of surprised because this is a single core processor. Of course, I can't install these updates because there's no Wi-Fi on this laptop at the moment. There's so much screen real estate. I have to really move the trackpad to have to get the mouse cursor down in the corner. But yeah, if I come over here, go to connect to a network, obviously there's no networks because there's no Wi-Fi card. So that's a bit of a shame, but I'm not too bothered by it because, you know, obviously I can just use this thing on Ethernet. It's not the end of the world, and I'm not going to be using it as my daily driver anyway. So no, Charles. That's kind of an inside joke in my Discord. But yeah, it's just a clean install of Vista, so that's really all there is to say about this machine too. So I think I'm going to go ahead and shut this down while it's still connected to the charger, because you kind of have to do that. So I don't know, I'll probably erase Vista eventually, but for right now that's what it's running. So I don't know if I'm going to put 7 on this or if I'm going to just make it an XP machine, although I have too many of those, so I don't know. Or maybe this thing is again just going to be a Vista machine. I haven't decided yet. So anyways, on to the last machine, which is that HP Pavilion Zv-6130. Alright, I turned my AC off for this, even though it's like 98 degrees Fahrenheit in this city, and it's going to get really hot. So I'm going to make this quick, but just listen to how loud the fans are on this laptop. And of course, Discord's still going off because I've got notifications on, so I'm a smart person. So yeah, that's pretty much the lowest fan speed of this machine, and they're always on fans. And this has 2 fans, so it's pretty loud, but I mean, for a laptop of this size and nature, it's no different than if it had like a desktop Pentium 4. I imagine the exact same kind of setup would have been used for the cooling. So anyways, as you can see, it's starting up Windows XP. This has 768 megs of RAM in it and an Athlon 64 3200 plus processor. I forget the clock speed. We'll find out when we get into Windows here. I think it's a 2 gigahertz CPU, so nothing crazy. There you got a little bit of a sample of the speakers. Again, they actually sound pretty good for a laptop of this age and this size. I know HP used the same style of Altec Lansing setups in their compact Presario lineups, like the V2000, the V6, no, the V6000 was a little newer, but the V5000 series, they used some of these. They're actually decently sounding speakers, and again, they can really give modern laptop speakers a run for their money because they're at least physically bigger and they actually have some decent quality sound to them. So it's got that going for them. So anyways, I digress. Let's go into the mic computer properties here and take a look and show you all around that. So you can see the CPU has downclocked in speed, so that's not accurate. It's a 2 gigahertz CPU in this, if I'm not mistaken, but it's got 768 megs of RAM, physical address extension because this is an Athlon 64. There you can see Athlon 64 processor, 3200 plus. Manufactured and supported by HP. I do actually have, like I mentioned, the similar-ish sort of original software load. The OS disc is just your standard XP Home Edition Service Pack 2 CD, but it comes with a DVD that has all the drivers and software, but I downloaded the wrong one because it's meant for one that had NVIDIA graphics and an NVIDIA chipset, whereas this is ATI, so it's a little bit different. But, you know, the applications and the wallpaper I think are the same, so I don't know. I don't really feel too confident in what I put on here, but you know what? It's close enough and it works, so I'm not going to dink around with it too much. So it is what it is for right now. So here you can see ATI Mobility Radeon Express 200. Now the reason why I point this out is because this is technically an integrated graphics solution, and that makes sense given the chipset that these would have had in them. A lot of machines that were AMD CPU equipped in 2004 through 2006, if I'm not mistaken, it went that late. They all use some variant of this Mobility Radeon Express 200 or the desktop Radeon Express 200. And usually those are equipped with shared video memory, which makes sense. But in this case, it actually has dedicated video memory. I have no idea what kind. I don't have a copy of GPU-Z here to verify, but in the BIOS, it does have a toggle switch for using dedicated video memory on the system. And if you noticed inside of the system properties, it has all 768 megabytes of RAM accessible. So, you know, even though it has the Radeon Express 200, it has a full dedicated 128 megs of video memory on the motherboard. So that's actually pretty impressive. That might actually give this thing a slight speed boost. Now, don't quote me on that. It's probably just DDR memory, and it's no faster than the system memory. But you know what? Hey, that's definitely a perk of this machine. So I will definitely give it that. There you can see the Hitachi DVD-RW drive, the GWA4082N. Of course, this just has IDE because it's from 2004. Serial ATA in a laptop was not mainstream yet. That wasn't until like 2006 when they started doing that. Of course, it has a modem. Nothing fancy, but it has a modem. There you can see this does have a fast Ethernet NIC, so 10100 Ethernet. And it also has Broadcom Wireless G, which is actually really nice because you can connect this to the internet and use WPA or WPA2 authentication, which is really nice. It's only 2.4 gigahertz though. You can see the Texas Instruments card bus controller and the other slot, the express card slot, my bad. I was trying to think of what it was. Anyway, you can see the SD card slot there, and I believe that's under the same thing here too, that SD card reader. There you can see the processor has its own custom driver from HP and AMD, so that's pretty cool that it identifies itself specifically here. Although most AMD laptops from the mid-2000s had drivers installed on them to denote the processor. But yeah, we can take a look around a little bit. This does have the ability to make CDs and DVDs, so it does have the right software for that. I believe this is based on that Sonic thing down here, like this Express thing or whatever. They all kind of combine together. This does not have a LightScribe drive, so this program likely won't work. I believe this would have probably shipped with a laptop that did have LightScribe, which is quite a bit newer than this. It does. I did install Half-Life on it because I wanted to try out the sound and the graphics, and it works well enough. I have yet to try GTA San Andreas, but you know, same thing goes for Road Wars. Although this is a 2001 game, so that's a little bit older. That should work just fine. It did come with QuickTime. I don't know what version though. Was it like 5? QuickTime 5? I don't know. It's QuickTime for Windows, so you know it's not too fantastic. Nope, this is actually significantly newer. It says QuickTime 6.5.1 on it. I would have figured something slightly older, but you know, maybe that's just me. Kind of a useful thing to have on Windows XPs to have QuickTime Player, even though you might never use it. This also comes with a program known as Movie Auto Producer. HP used to include this program on a lot of their laptops that had FireWire, and especially their slightly newer ones, to allow you to capture DV video and make videos out of them alongside the built-in Windows Movie Maker. So you could select videos and pictures and stuff, and you could make like this movie file. So it's pretty neato, and I think the newer versions gave you like a timeline interface, which is pretty nifty as well. There's a few different Zone Deluxe games there, like the MSN Gaming Zone, if anybody remembers that. I think it's all shut down now. Anyways. And then there's Java. It's got an old version of iTunes on it. I think it's like iTunes 7. So it's got the green music notes. So I think that's iTunes 7. It's close enough. Back in the day when HP actually included iTunes on their Windows machines, specifically around the time of when the HP iPod was a thing. So that's the reason why these came preloaded with iTunes, is because HP sold iPods. Nope, I was completely way off. It says iTunes 4. As you can see, there's the HP moniker there on the version number. Man, I'm way off on my version numbers today. That is really embarrassing. But hey, classic iTunes. There's a look at that brushed metal interface that came on Panther. You know, anybody remembers way back to that? I sure do. I grew up with Panther, and I miss those days. I really do. I also miss Jaguar. That was actually a really solid OS. I'm reminiscing to the days when we had an Imac G3 as a daily driver, so I apologize. It has an 80 gig hard drive in it, and it is original. I think it's the original. It's IDE, of course, as I mentioned. And yeah, it's otherwise all there is to say about this machine. There's not too much software on it. This didn't come with a whole heck of a lot. It would have probably came with some old Norton antivirus, which I didn't bother to install from the DVD. It wasn't necessary. But yeah, there's the ZV6130 in all of its glory. And I definitely do want to do some more things with this laptop in the future. It is actually going to potentially replace a few of my desktops that are mainly Pentium 4s, but one is an Athlon 64. And in case anybody's wondering, no, it's not going to be the HP Pavilion A1477C. That is a dual-core CPU, so that's going to be sticking around, whereas this machine is going to replace pretty much all the single-core Athlon 64s and whatnot, because I can more easily store this machine, and for the most part, its CPU is powerful enough to match those other machines, and their integrated graphics are going to be similar to this, and this has discrete video memory. So all in all, I don't think it's that bad of a machine, but we're not done yet, because I got to go pull out the dock, so let me do that right now. Sorry, I had to turn the vent back on, so I hope y'all can still hear me, because it is really hot in this room. But anyways, I digress. This is the HP XB2000 notebook expansion base, and again, this uses the expansion bay 2 style of connector. And look at how big this, look at my lap. Like, this thing takes up my entire lap. That's insane. It's got built-in Harman Kardon speakers on both sides, and they do work over that connector. You don't have to connect any additional cables. And you also have a power light there in case the lid of the laptop's closed. And you also have a mute and volume control here. Not sure what else is on this side of the window here, but you know, it is kind of what it is. This does have some markings of where maybe potentially some things would go, like your modem cable and your power cable or something of that nature. Maybe that's something else. This is a non-slip mat here. It's all rubber, so the laptop will stay in place. There's nothing for video outputs or anything of that nature. It's just kind of like an expansion unit, but a really heavy and really excessively big one for that matter. So of course you have headphone and microphone jacks here and a USB port, and I believe the internal audio of the laptop is disabled, so you have to use those jacks on the dock. There you can see the power. This has 3 different styles of chargers. Obviously this one here is to power the dock with the laptop charger, which uses that same connector. And I'm not sure what these other 2 would do. There's 2 more USB ports here, and then you got separated modem and Ethernet ports, because again, I think the ones built into the laptop are disabled. You do have a SPDIF out. You also have your composite out, your S-video out, and I believe this little blanking plate here would be used for a external disk of some kind that would plug in, and this would be the power for that, or something of that nature. Maybe combine the data and the power into one connector, but I don't have one of those drives, and obviously this doesn't support it, so that's pretty useless. And I think over here is some kind of a base where you can put in a hard drive, if I'm not mistaken. That's what that glyph is for. And you can also take the screw out and perform that function. You know, obviously don't quote me on this, but I think that is what that's for. And this does kind of like suggest that it would slide out. So, very interesting. Alright, so let's try to put this thing up here on the desk, because it does actually take up quite a bit of space. Now, what's nice about me having the kind of laptop that I do right now is that the battery actually still holds a charge, so I can actually just pull the plug and the machine will just stay on, which is absolutely wonderful. Now, the nice thing is, too, this dock will actually supply power to the laptop and charge its battery, which is really nice. So let's move the charger out of the way, or the Dell one, and then we'll move the HP charger out of the way, and then we'll need to move the entire laptop out of the way so we can set this big beefy thing down on the desk. So it's going to basically have to trade places with my lap, and set this down on my lap and get this thing up here on the desk. And this is quite the setup, I tell you what. This would mainly be if you had a larger desk, if you haven't noticed. And this would basically act as your desktop replacement, so to say. So let's go ahead and plug the power into this thing in the back, and there we go. So now the dock has power, and now we can set the laptop inside the dock here and plug in its cable. In this case, it's on the right-hand side, and once we do that, now the external speakers are on. The laptop is now connected to power and is charging, and the power light reflects the laptop's power status right there, as you might be able to tell. And what really sucks about this dock in particular is that you don't have access to your trackpad buttons, but you do get the full power to the laptop, so this thing is not gimped in any way by being on the dock power-wise. Like, this thing is completely let loose, ready to roll. And what's also neat I believe if you had the ability to, if I'm not mistaken, you could also extend the VRAM with a docking base like this, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm probably wrong on this, and obviously that's not too far from the truth. But I think let's go ahead and restart the computer real quick, and we'll actually put it in the BIOS because I wanted to show that toggle real quick because it would likely be a good idea to show that so that we all can get a bit of an idea as to what I'm talking about by the video memory situation of this machine. The speakers do definitely have a little bit more depth to them, a little bit more definition, but it's definitely one of those things where these are like not really a replacement to standard desk speakers, but they're pretty close, I would say. I'm gonna grab some water here. So here we go. As you can see, Athlon 64, 2 gigahertz, 768 megs of RAM. I was actually lucky enough to find a BIOS update for this thing. So it's on the latest BIOS that I've been able to find, which is F.1c from 2006. So that's a fairly recent BIOS. I don't know what it fixed, but hey, that's just pretty cool to have nonetheless. So, of course, there's no passwords on this. There's nothing that I need to worry about there. So here we go. So this is what I'm talking about. So, as you can see, this has 3 different toggles for the graphics. So you can see there's side port, UMA, and then UMA plus side port. Now, I have it set to side port. Side port is using the onboard video memory of the laptop, which in this case, the laptop has 128 megs of dedicated video memory built in. If you use the side port, then, of course, obviously, it's not referring to this. I think it's referring to this or something of that nature. But you can also set it to UMA, which shares from the system memory. And I'm not sure if that's... Yeah, you can configure it. And as you can see, it doesn't even detect dedicated video memory anymore. It instead shares up to 128 megs from the system RAM. But if you do UMA plus side port, as you can see, now you have access to up to 256 megs of video RAM. So that's definitely something. I'll get you guys a bit of a look here, actually, so you can get a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about here. So this is if you need additional system memory to beef up the graphics, which, I don't know, maybe could be useful. But there you get a bit of an idea as to what I'm talking about there. Honestly, for a machine like this, 128 megs of VRAM is fine. It'll do the job, and it will have Windows Aero support, which is really nifty. And of course, since this is an Athlon 64, it does have 64-bit support, which is really nice. Obviously, I'd need to have more RAM for that sort of thing, but, it is what it is. So, anyways, that's all I really wanted to show in the BIOS. So let's go ahead and restart and, put it back into Windows here so we can actually, maybe I'll do something real quick with, like, Half-Life. I gotta go plug in a mouse, but, it's the least of my worries. Okie doke. So we're back into Windows, and like I said, we'll probably just do something real quick here regarding a game. I haven't really dived into what this thing is actually possible at doing, but I've got a copy of Game of the Year edition of the original Half-Life on CD. So let's go ahead and we'll pop that into the optical drive here, and we'll give it a shot. Obviously, we'll... Oh, fucking hell. That's not exactly good for the disc. Probably made a lot of people cringe. Sorry, I'm clumsy. That just tends to happen for me. Let's see if I can rotate this thing. I've also got a mouse here, so I'm gonna try plugging this into one of the laptop's internal ports, because I'm actually kind of curious to see if they are disabled when you actually plug in the dock, or if you're actually still able to use them in conjunction to the ports that are on the dock itself. So let's find out here. Oh, based on that sound effect, yes, it actually does. And I don't know what it's doing, but Windows is just having a fit. It doesn't know what to do with itself. I'm not sure what's going on there. See, it detects it as a mouse, but it keeps like disconnecting and reconnecting. I wonder if it's a power issue. It could be. Because obviously I bet you if I plug it into one of the USB ports on the back, it should obviously work just fine. I wonder if, they're not meant to be used, but they technically could be. I'm not sure if it just needs additional power for that or not, but if I plug it in here in the dock, No, it's still doing it. Huh. Wonder if Windows just doesn't like this, or Windows XP in particular, doesn't like this mouse. Oh, now suddenly it's ready to use. Okay. Well, I'll roll with it then. Alright. Cool. So let me see if I can adjust the camera here, because it's really got some glare. Actually, screw it. I'll just go freehand camera mode because I can't be bothered. We're not going to do too much anyway, so let's go ahead and play Half-Life here and give it a listen. So I'd say it sounds alright. For what it is, it sounds alright. So let's go ahead and we'll get into a new game here. And then just medium difficulty, whatever. And I've updated the video drivers, so this has access to a properly functioning OpenGL mode at 1024 by 768. And of course, since this is the original Half-Life,
and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit
as you can
System.
see, not a
This
problem.
automated train is provided for the security and convenience of the Black Mesa Research Facility personnel.
So this would make for a fantastic
The
machine
time is
to play original Half-Life
8:47
on.
a.m. Current topside temperature is 93 degrees, with an estimated high of...
So we don't even really need to go into that. This thing can play Half-Life just fine. So there you go. So I think that'll pretty much, for the most part, wrap up this video with this absolute monstrosity. God, you gotta love early to mid 2000s technology, am I right? Or maybe that's just me. Anyways, so yeah, that'll wrap up this video. If you like what you saw, don't forget to hit the like button. If you didn't like the video so much because I probably missed out on some detail or whatever, well then the other button works too, to dislike the video. And if you want to see more content on these machines, or perhaps some more entertaining content and other videos of mine that I might make in the future, there will be a button down below that says subscribe. I would highly recommend that you click on it, including the bell so you don't miss whenever I upload new videos, and hopefully YouTube actually reminds you about them whenever I make them public. And with that having been said, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.